Thanks. Welcome to the first Humpday Hangout of the month of February. I'm Steve Pegram, your host from the International Society of Fire Service Instructors and also Fire Chief in Goshen, Ohio. The Humpday Hangout is brought to you by Fire Engineering and our friends at Penwell FDIC. And we'll be discussing training topics the first Wednesday of the month. And we have a bunch of guests with us today, and we'll get into our training topic in just a minute. But first, I wanted to turn the video over to our good friend, Bobby Halton, editor of Fire Engineering Magazine and the host of Fire Engineering and FDIC. So, Bobby, take it away.
Hey, Steve, thank you so much for having me, and welcome to today's Humpday Hangout. Just real briefly, I thought we'd give everybody an update on what's going on with the Humpday Hangouts. As everybody knows, and if you're a regular listener, if you're among the 180,000 folks that tune in weekly to this Humpday Hangout, first Tuesday is always training with our host, Steve Pegram. He'll be joined by Aaron Heller when Aaron's available. Aaron, unfortunately, has a family emergency this week and can't be with us. But that first Wednesday is all about training and instructing. And we're blessed because Steve is currently the president of the International Society of Fire Service Instructors. If you're not a member, please go to the International Society of Fire Service Instructors website and sign up today. There's a lot of great benefits, including a discount to FDIC that you can add to your subscriber discount and get up to $125 off your registration at FDIC. Amazing discount and something that you really should be part of. You ought to be a part of the Fire Engineering Training Network, which gets you a subscription to fire engineering, fire apparatus, fire rescue. It also gets you a discount at FDIC, and then clearly you need to be a member of the International Association of Fire Service Instructors. They hold their annual meeting at FDIC where you can network with the best and the brightest, learn new techniques and methodologies, get the latest up-to-date training, get train-the-trainer opportunities, get to network with people like Steve and Brad and Doug Klein and all the other great instructors, Ricky Riley, Nick Martin, John O'Connell. It's literally a who's who of the greatest instructors in the American Fire Service today who belong to the International Association of Fire Service Instructors. So please make an effort to join. And if you're not a member and you're coming to FDIC, meet us at the meeting and you can just sign up there. Our second Wednesday is always the Fire Ground, and this week it'll be Bill Guston and my good friend Mike Dugan. They're the hosts, and they're going to be discussing staffing and tactical priorities this week, which should be fascinating. One of the questions we always ask is, if you're going to do resources to do VEIS, then what about your primary search? So tune in second Wednesday of every month and get the Fire Ground. Third Wednesday is always going to be Issues and Concerns with the Rick Lasky. So Rick will be having his friends on with him, and they're talking about issues and concerns in the fire service. Fourth Wednesday is the unbelievable combination of PJ Norwood and his sidekick, Frank Ritchie, and they will be doing health and safety in the fire service, and there's any myriad of topics there. They'll be covering everything from cancer to suicide and everything in between as it relates to us tactically, operationally, and socially about health and wellness and everything else. The fifth Wednesday of every month, now there's only 5 of them, is going to be hosted by our good friend Steve Kerber, and he's going to be doing research and development, tactics and strategy. That's the 5th Wednesday. Steve Kerber going to be doing research and development, so look forward to that. So that's what's going on. FDIC real quickly, and I hate to ramble on, I apologize, but FDIC real quickly, hot classes are selling out. There's 4 hot classes that are currently sold out. Now there are 21 hot classes, and unlike other conferences, we never cancel. We always run the classes unless there's an instructor personal issue and they can't make it. We don't cancel. So you still have 17 other classes that are open to take classes in, and you can combine a workshop and a classroom. So if you want to take the Instructor Society Train the Trainer program, you can do that and take a hands-on training class. You can mix and match and do all kinds of great things with FDIC. It's the world's greatest fire service training conference. It'll be this April 20th through 25th. It'll be 35,000 of your closest friends. Unbelievable opportunity. It's a fire conference that's run by the fire service, for the fire service. Nothing but practitioners, no salespeople, no agendas, nobody with a training program that they want you to buy, nothing hidden. It's the real fire service practitioners talking about the fire service. in a really natural way. It's not contrived. It's not thematic. It's not hysterical tracking the latest trends. It's really the who's who, including over 15 international instructors, people from Sweden, Stefan Svensson, Australia, Ireland, Germany, Dr. Reich, people from all around the world coming to present at FDIC. Over 53 nations were there last year. So that's our commercial endorsement. We're being brought to you by FDIC this week. And thank you for letting me ramble on for a few moments there. But remember, every Wednesday is the Humpday Hangout. And I'll turn it back over to our host of the program, the one and only Steve Pegram.
Thank you, Bobby. And like you said, we all feel that FDIC is the greatest show on earth. We all go every year to get recharged. I will mention that Monday and Tuesday, ISFSI is again running their instructor boot camp. We're doing it twice. Monday as a workshop in the morning, and then again Tuesday in the afternoon. Lead instructor on that is Forrest Reeder, prior Instructor of the Year award winner. And a lot of people know Forrest's work through firefighterclosecalls.com. He does post all the drills on there. And a host of other instructors will be helping him with that workshop. But again, offered twice, Monday morning and again Tuesday afternoon. Real quick, we're going to introduce our guests today from left to right. Real quickly, Brad, why don't you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your pedigree.
All right, Brad French. I'm a lieutenant in Dayton, Ohio, a line officer on an engine company downtown. Have been involved with the International Society of Fire Service Instructors pretty heavily for the last 3 or 4 years. Excited to be having the opportunity to get on the board of directors this year in Indianapolis, so looking forward to that. And also teach at the local community college, St. Clair Community College in Dayton, and in the University of Cincinnati's Fire Science program. So thanks for having me today, Chief.
Thank you. First Vice President Devon Wells.
Good morning, Steve, or afternoon for you guys. Again, I'm Devon Wells. I'm the first Vice President, ISFSI Fire Chief out here in Hood River, Oregon. So I've been on the board of directors for a while, ISFSI, and looking forward to another great year with the society. Been involved in training for a long time, and one of the instructors for the Principles of Modern Fire Attack program that ISFSI is bringing out currently. So excited to be here and talk about some training. And training's my passion, and that's what I love to do. So excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Devon. Nick Martin from South Carolina.
How you doing, guys? Nick Martin. I'm a battalion chief with the City of Columbia Fire Department in the capital city of South Carolina. Currently assigned as the chief of training there, and also privileged to work with the guys at Fire Engineering at FDIC at their hands-on and classroom stuff, and very, very thankful to be here today.
Thanks, Nick. We're going to go right into our first question, and when I was thinking about the topic for this month, we're starting a new year. We're already a month into it, but if you're anything like my organization, we still don't have our approved budget yet, so we're still trying to figure out priorities. But I wanted to ask the panel, when you look at training and when you're scheduling your training plan for a new year, how do you determine what your priorities are? And what I mean by that is, what are the most important topics and how do you determine what they are? And they're different for all of us. In my organization, we're a true combination department with full-time, part-time, and paid-on-call staff, so we repeat a lot of training multiple times to be able to hit everybody. But I wanted to sort of get an idea of what you've seen in your organization, but also in your area, how people are addressing setting priorities for training. Nick, since you are the guy who does training Monday through Friday, why don't we start off with you?
I was very interesting when I got your email with the list of topics, and very timely based on some things we've been working on over the past few weeks or so. We've been formulating our final plans for 2015, and I guess when we talk about priorities, the first thing I have to think about at a very broad level is, there's a couple different categories that this kind of stuff training falls into. There's your mandatory stuff, like almost everybody has some form of EMS certification that they have to do, some kind of mandatory recertification on an annual basis, and then you have things, that are generally very not exciting, like HIPAA or hazmat, refresher kind of stuff or whatever. Then you have programs that you might have to run on an annual basis based on how you operate that are certification bearing, which may be recruit schools, it may be turning people over to drive. It may be giving people their officer programs to be able to test for promotional exams, etc. And then you get to, those are kind of the things you have to do. And then the fourth category, or last category, that I think requires a lot more intensive thought and attention is kind of your operations category. And what I mean by that is, after we get out of the way and plan for all of the things that we know we have to do pretty much every year just to run a fire department, we focus on the things that we're dealing with on fires or on incidents. And the way we pay attention to that is by having regular communication with all of our chief officers, and finding out what they're encountering out on incident scenes, what's going well that we can not worry about right now, what's going poorly that we need to pay extra attention to, and start to begin to figure out where the voids are, and we begin to fill them, and we can kind of then narrow down to some specific stuff. So I mean, last year for us, we worked a lot on our standard operating guidelines and our predetermined assignments for structure fires. We worked a lot on rural water supply, and this year is shaping up to have a whole lot of focus for us on Mayday operations and rapid intervention or FAST skills.
Now, Nick, you mentioned Mayday and FAST team operations. Is that due to an incident or just time to refresh that information?
Well, I mean, in a short way, yeah, it's due to an incident. Fortunately, it wasn't our incident. And I don't mean to benefit off of anybody else's bad day, but many lessons in this job are written in blood, and we owe it to those who have passed or had tragedies, even if it's not in our own organization, to learn from and not repeat their mistakes. So we constantly, very stringently critique our own operations. Fortunately, the couple close calls we had last year were minor in nature and compared to what other people around the country had. But we use those lessons also to kind of say, you know what, that could happen here. We need to do something about it and address it. And we're looking a lot at the command role of managing a Mayday, all the way down to what the firefighter on the FAST SCBA needs to know about how to operate that device inside a Mayday environment.
Awesome, thank you. Chief Wells, what do you do up there in Oregon?
So I think one of the big things that we just did this year is just recreated a structural fire tactical operating guideline, and it encompasses everything from how we respond, the communications we use, the tactical frequencies, how we take hydrants, how we attack the fires, all the way through, so we can give firefighters a one document to review instead of having to sort through all the different SOGs in our department. So we've taken that that document now and are planning to go through each one of the functions of the first arriving engine, second arriving engine, first arriving truck, first arriving chief, and we're using those as company evolutions for our drill nights for our paid and volunteer firefighters. We bring in the volunteers every Wednesday night, and they do drills. They train on that. They're going to be doing evolution training, which will encompass all different skills. The shifts are taking that, and they're doing individual trainings together. The plan is that every fifth Wednesday we'll bring in our mutual aid partners, and we'll have a big drill, a large drill. The one coming up this next month is we call it a big box drill. We're going to be down at one of our exposition centers here in town, and having 4 or 5 area departments to go around and act like that building's on fire and do evolutions. We also have to remember we have EMS training that we have to do. We're a 24-hour-a-day ALS transporting ambulance agency, and so we have all the Oregon-required EMS trainings that we have to do. So that adds a little bit of a complexity, so we decide on one Wednesday a month that we're going to provide 2 or 3 hours of EMS training to keep those standards up for the EMTs that are either volunteers and also paid. After that, we also have seasonal issues that we look at. So we have wildland season that starts up in June here. So we every April or May, then we add a wildland module into it, and we do our refreshers on wildland. So it's pretty complex, but we try to lay it out 6 months at least in advance with our training captain that's in charge of that, and also our volunteer coordinator to try to mesh those two people together and keep a consistent training calendar in action.
Thanks, Devon. Lieutenant French?
Well, I guess I kind of look at the training aspect a little bit differently in my role as a company officer as the line officer, we've got a full-time training center in our department that kind of takes care of planning our annual basic skills evaluations, where all the companies end up coming out to the training center once a year and getting some updated training, some hands-on, doing some basic skills every year. But one of the things that we struggle with is having the opportunity to pull companies out of service, to do a lot of hands-on training at our training center. And so we focus more on training at the company level. And although the training center certainly coordinates large-scale activities when we can do that, and sets the tone for training for the year, really at the company level, I kind of try to set the pace for daily company drills and things like that, really based on a number of different factors, on incidents that we've had, things where as a company officer I see that maybe we're struggling on, or we need some more practice on one particular area. We might focus there, and again, we use anniversaries of line of duty deaths and things like that to do a morning company drill to set the tone for that day, to maybe go out and do some follow-up hands-on training that day. So again, the training center in my department kind of sets the tone and sets the direction for training. But as far as individual things on a more regular basis, I can control that at the company level as a lieutenant. I really think that that's where the focus really needs to be if you're in a situation where like a lot of departments have experienced budget cuts and things like that, to where maybe they don't have the personnel assigned to training that they once did. With what is left in the training center, focusing that attention and that time and effort on the company officer, which is then going to in turn filter down to the troops, as all the company officers do their company level drills within their stations. If the training center focuses on officer development, then that'll trickle down and eventually have benefits down the line for the firefighters.
Awesome. Chief Halton, do you want to chime in on this? I know you've got a lot of background, both where you're living now and continuing to support the local volunteer fire department, but also in your career.
Well, actually, just a little pedigree stuff. I was chief of training for the Albuquerque, New Mexico Fire Department, and I am currently chief of training for the Limestone Fire Protection District, which is a volunteer organization. We do have some paid guys, 6 paid guys Monday through Friday for the day shift, but the rest of the time it's all volunteer. So we're a great organization, and as a matter of fact, I received my badge yesterday from our chief. Chief Smith presented me with my badge as chief of training for Limestone Fire Protection District, which I proudly accepted, and absolutely one of the greatest honors of my life to be a training chief for a volunteer fire department. That being said, when we talk about scheduling training, for me there's a three-pronged approach. One is obviously competency, which is training, and that means that we need to have regular drill, that's scheduled regular drill on what I consider core competencies, whether it's the use of the saws, whether it's the use of the hydraulic tools, whether it's the use of the rake or shores, all of those types of things. So that stuff for me in my schedule is a monthly issue, core competencies. So I focus there. The next piece of it is the confidence part of it, where I look at this training opportunities, find the people who are well versed in specific evolutions, whether it's a extrication, they're up to speed on roadway hazard management or whatever, and then we schedule that type of activity based on competency. The part that we have that we're doing with Limestone, which is probably a tad different than many of the other training programs, other than the stuff that everyone else has already mentioned, and I think very, very appropriately focused on what we do. Our risk management profiles, what we do, our training programs, what we do. Here at Limestone, we also add an educational component, suggested readings, informal sessions where we talk about some of the histories of the fire services, and not just from a historical standpoint, but from the individuals, and we look at people like, well, if you want to talk about an interesting character, talk about the days of Bresnan and correspondingly Braidwood back in the UK, when high-rises were being built out of wood. Well, what's interesting about that discussion, if you talk about how they got codes into the system, how they talked about handline evolutions, I mean, that was their problem of the day, high-rises that were completely constructed out of wood. We're seeing a return to that construction methodology in what we're calling the 1 in 4s or the 1 in 5s, depending on where they're building them, which is a non-combustible base which has mercantile in it, your Starbucks, your bodegas, your food places and whatnot. And then on top of it, they're building apartments, all out of wood, basically platform construction. But as we know, our codes for those particular buildings, much like the Edgewater fire was the most recent example, our codes for those buildings is very permissive. They call it the R code. Some people call it, for residential, some people call it roulette, because the void spaces and the chases and the attic spaces and cockloss and whatnot are not sprinklered. So, and you've got the wood I-beam construction, you got all the other issues. So what we do at Limestone from a training perspective is core competencies, first and foremost, and a lot of drill. Knowing where the tools are, knowing how they operate, knowing the ins and outs of them. We follow that up with all of the stuff, the lockout, tag out, the EMS stuff, all of that stuff that we need to do on a regular basis. Add to that some of the confidence building stuff where we have our people who are more of the aficionados that chime in with regular weekly opportunities for our members to get more hands-on, and then an education component, suggested readings. It might be a book. Great author right there in Dayton, Ohio, in Brad's backyard, Dr. Gary Klein, who has done a tremendous amount of work with the American Fire Service, has written several books, that most recently Streetlights and Shadows. Highly recommend that for all firefighters to read. Important read about how the brain works under pressure. So we do a kind of a three-pronged approach, and I think that when you look at the commitment of the volunteer fire department employee, member, the confidence and competence, that really gives you that whole well-rounded firefighter, the total package there, and it really encapsulates the character of what we're trying to do at Limestone.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief. And I know that one of the challenges I think all of us either currently or previously have served in a volunteer environment, and it adds a lot of other challenges just with scheduling and things like that. I wanted to go back to a comment Nick made at the very beginning, which is they set their priorities for their training based on what they have to do, which he mentioned refreshers, recertification, and training recruits, training drivers, and training officers, and then everything else, which is the what we need to do or what we really want to do. And so I'll pose a question to the panel again. When you're addressing the I have to do's, the annual recertifications, the OSHA compliance stuff, bloodborne pathogens, things like that, what are you using to address those training topics? Are you using online learning, flipped classroom, simulations versus death by PowerPoint or a traditional classroom setting? How do you address that, Nick?
We have a couple different, and we have a very large system. Just for some background, we have our system covers about 700 square miles. We're majority a career department, about 500 career members, and then about 120 or so active volunteers. So we do have this challenge of how to address, 3 different shifts worth of career members and a bunch of a strong handful of volunteers that are on all different kinds of schedule, obviously, over a very large geographic area. So we use the Target Solutions online training system as one method, and it gives us ability to share things like written training bulletins or photos or presentations and videos and stuff like that. But to be honest, in some of our rural areas, we've encountered problems where they don't have the internet speed to be able to watch the videos effectively. So that kind of shoots that in the foot a little bit. But then a lot of our training obviously gets done at our training facility, which is kind of on the edge of downtown. But right now I'm working on trying to build a bunch of satellite training facilities where we would be able to either have mini training academies at some of the other firehouses to disperse that geographically, or maybe I've looked at some ideas. Right after I left D.C., they got a great basically trailer and truck full of stuff that they can drive around from battalion to battalion to do certain things that you used to only be able to do at the training academy, like force doors and cut roofs and have a maze kind of prop and stuff like that. So we're trying to work on a lot of different initiatives to do that. I mean, all that to say, you know, the one somebody made a comment earlier about the importance of the company level stuff and everything. I mean, that is something that I'm still trying to make everybody understand how is important. I mean, it's kind of weird. You insert something into a fire department that has a title training bureau, and then, you know, some people decide that, oh, I guess nobody else has any responsibility for organizing or running any training around here except for those guys with the patch on. And you know, I think that contrary, you know, that's totally incorrect. I mean, the you know, people outside of the training bureau probably bear something on the order of, if I had to make up a number, 80% of the responsibility for delivering functional training to the majority of the fire department. You know, I only get people down at the drill field for a very small number of hours per person per year. You know, the rest of the time, you know, the other 1,000+ hours that person is around the fire department that year, they're with the company officer in the company, in the battalion. And the battalion chiefs and the company officers have to bear a lot of responsibility for taking those broad messages that the training bureau puts together and helping and deliver them down to the individual. Because if we just wait for, you know, 5 out of 600 guys to do it for you, it's going to be a real long wait, and who knows what will happen in the middle.
Cool, thanks. Devon, same question. How are you addressing the must-haves, the things that you have to do, the annual refreshers, and are you using any technology to address that?
We use as much technology as we possibly can. We don't have a subscription to any of the online training services or anything like that. But we do a lot of you know, there's so much training that's out there and available online, whether it's through YouTube videos or on different websites that provide training. That we provide a topic out there, and then and some direction, and our captains for each shift will go out and they'll find that training, and they'll give that training to their individuals. As far as it goes for volunteer training, a lot of it's done by, we do a lot of hands-on training. We don't want our volunteers to sit in classrooms. They come in, they've only got a few hours a day or a week to be able to give us for training. You know, spending 4 or 5 hours sitting in a classroom is not one way to keep them retained and coming back every year or every week. So we do a lot of times we'll give them articles. Excuse me. We'll give them articles to read, or we'll point them to direct to online articles or online training programs to watch. And then when they come in, we do a lot of hands-on work. But a lot of the stuff, like for our EMS mandated stuff, that's all provided by the state. And so we'll find topics that we follow through them. We have a cache of DVDs on training topics that we'll watch and use great books out there, just like the Fire Engineering Firefighter Handbook is one of our textbooks that we use, and that's a great resource for people to be able to read through, and then they come to drill prepared to do hands-on work. Our training academies that we do one a year as a regional academy, all volunteer regional academy. And we do the same thing. It's kind of a hybrid. They will study before they get to drill, or before they get to the recruit class, and then that recruit class they'll take a test, review some stuff real quick, and then get out on the fire ground and do a lot of hands-on. We see it as being a lot of precious time, and we don't want to spend that precious time killing them with PowerPoints or watching movies when they could watch that and do that at home or on their own time. We want to spend time doing functional hands-on operations related training. So that's what we do.
Thanks, Devon. Brad, what are we doing up in Dayton?
Well, to go along with a little bit of what Nick said and a little bit of what Devon said, you know, using the online stuff is okay. We have a web-based learning management system here in Dayton as well. But I guess from my perspective, you kind of got to take that with a grain of salt. I get a little nervous when departments kind of use that online learning management system stuff as kind of their go-to thing. Now, if you're talking, you know, annual bloodborne pathogens refresher, or your annual OSHA required ops refresher for hazmat or something like that, sure, you know, a learning management system and watching a video is fine for that. But I'm sure the firefighters in my department are a lot like the firefighters in every other department in the United States, which is when they turn one of those videos on in the firehouse, you know, you're not riveted to your chair about the difference between hepatitis A and B. You know, you go get a cup of coffee, and then you go work on something else, right? That's not exactly edge of your seat type stuff. And so you can get away with maybe for some of the mandated annual things that maybe aren't quite as hard hitting, sure, use the online learning management system. And I'm certainly not trying to take anything away from that concept. But when it comes to hard hitting stuff that you really want them to know, not just know on a surface level, but know on a deep level, I tend to think that really we should stay away from those learning management systems for those types of things, and that use that time you do have with them each year, annually or quarterly or whatever, to where you actually get that hands-on, interpersonal dynamic, person-to-person type of hard-hitting education to do the important stuff. You want to use the online stuff and videos and LMS systems, okay, use it for some of the I don't want to say less important, but okay, I'll say it, less important stuff, and then use your hands-on time. Use your hands-on time for the stuff that really matters.
I couldn't agree more, Brad. Training Chief Halton, what do you say?
Well, I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things. That this is a great hangout. I mean, you guys are, what a great group. Devon mentioned something about using articles, and I think, and I can, just so everybody knows, feel free. Like if here's a great article, SCBA Boot Camp of Firefighter Survival School. It's going to be coming out. Probably shouldn't show too much of this, but it'll be coming out in March. That I just finished editing for Trevor Stedman. But if you wanted to make a copy of that and use it to do like say you were training say you want to initiate what Trevor has, this program Trevor outlines here in your organization, you want to do a train the trainer, you're allowed to copy these articles and hand them out, as Devon said, as long as you're not taking money and you just do it one time. That's a totally legal thing to do, because I get a lot of requests from folks on a daily basis. Can I reprint this article? Can I do this or that? Can I? As long as you're not selling it, you're not doing a class where you're getting paid or something like that. If you're just doing it like Devon is to get information out to volunteer firefighters and whatnot, please feel free to do that. I mean, that's called one-time educational use only, and it's covered under the copyright protection deal. A lot of people don't know that, and I know the only reason I know that they don't know it is I get 4 or 5 requests a day for people to use different articles. But from the fire engineering standpoint, if I could just dovetail on about online opportunities that we have, we do daily drills on fire engineering, weekly, and Forrest gets us those, and other people contribute as well. We also do training minutes, and I'll throw Nick under the bus because Nick's got one up right now, a training minutes video. They're very short. They're usually 3 to 5 minutes in length, and they actually show you how to reproduce it almost instantaneously. And what's nice about it from the volunteer side is you can take your laptop out there, pull fire engineering up, run the training minute video, and then say to your folks, okay, here's the same stuff, let's do it. And then you've got it right there, whether it's a handline one by Ray, or you got Nick doing his this week, or whoever it is. So there's all kinds of tools on there. There's some simulation tools that on fire, and I'm just going to make a shameless plug for our products. So feel free to use it, or Fire Rescue Magazine, or go to Firefighter Nation. There's a lot of stuff on there. We also have on a thing called Roll Call Tips on FDIC, where we've got Steve and many other very well-known fire service people who just give you a quick 2 or 3 minute, even sometimes it's 90 seconds, a tip about for your roll call for the day. And I'd highly encourage you. It's free. You're allowed to use them however you want to use them, and have your folks tune in. And I think that's an opportunity, because I think there's a lot of great stuff out there. And I know sometimes company officers are wondering, well, what am I going to cover today? And so you can just pull that up, and it can get the conversation going, so to speak. But I think on the lockout, tagout stuff and the stuff that's mandatory, at least for me here in Oklahoma, working with the training folks that I'm working with now, a lot of it's mandated, and we get state curricula that we have to present, and which is fine. It's good stuff, and we do that. So, and we just have to schedule that in. And I know sometimes it's painful and it can be death by PowerPoint, but the troops understand, and you can make it lively. And if you got a good presenter, a good presenter can make anything interesting, because you throw your own stories in there, and you throw real life examples and a few appropriate jokes. So you can kind of bring it to life. Not all PowerPoint kills you, although some of it can be pretty mind-numbing. But on our lockout, tagouts, our EMS stuff, a lot of that we get is we get it from the state, and we're mandated to run it.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief. Again, a comment that was made a few minutes ago was talking about training with our mutual aid departments. And I think across the country we're seeing more and more places that didn't use mutual aid now using mutual aid or AMAR's automatic mutual aid. And then there's other parts of the country that have been doing it for years. But one of the deficits we see in line of duty reports, after actions, and a lot of us just know it in our own communities, is we run fires together, but we don't drill together. So my next question for the panel is, how are you addressing, if you do use automatic mutual aid or mutual aid in your area, how are you addressing training with those companies? Nick, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'm an open door. You know, I made sure as soon as I got here, I contacted as I began to know the other departments in the area and everything. You know, obviously, I have an obligation to ensure that all opportunities are provided to our people first. But other than that, you know, I invite everybody. You know, I was just at Army Base Fort Jackson, which is the home of infantry school, is in the city of Columbia. And they, of course, have their own fire department. And I was, just before I was on here, I was over there at their firehouse talking with their guys, looking at some buildings that they have that they can offer us to do some joint training, and talking about bringing them to our opportunities to provide them some training, you know, from us. You know, we have an agency, we have one agency that we have automatic mutual aid with, so they are basically a seamless part of our operations, and we ensure that they are invited to every one of our multi-unit drills. When we get new equipment, like last year we got some hydrant valves, you know, we made sure that we went out there and trained individually with them, so that when they were running with us, you know, second or third due as the engine or whatever, they would know how to operate those valves. You know, I try and extend pretty much every opportunity we have. Any seats that are open after our guys have filled them, any and all of our neighbors are welcome to come to. And I think that we've seen that pay dividends on a fire ground in terms of working well operationally. I think it's built a lot of relationships and opened up the doors to people talking and begin to start other opportunities. And it's paid off for us because now they invite us to their stuff too. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Awesome, thanks, Nick. And I neglected throughout all these questions is to tell you what we're doing here in Ohio. Real fast, I'll jump on this bandwagon. Is we use a lot of automatic mutual aid. We handle the day-to-day single engine, single ambulance type stuff, but anytime you get outside of that type of response, typically a neighboring community is responding to us, or we're responding to a neighboring community. And on a one-alarm fire where we have maybe 5 to 7 resources dispatched, that means we probably have 5 to 7 departments involved. One of the things we've done here locally is our neighboring department that we run with the most has a drill tower, and the drill tower happens to be right on our border. So their companies were already going there every week. Their 4 stations were meeting there for hands-on training. So we just started sending our engine company. So now 3 times a week on all 3 shifts, our engine company still can respond from that location and cover our area, but is getting to drill with those companies. And we've seen some great dividends on the fire ground based upon the training and the things that we figured out. We figured out that some of our adapters weren't the same, that some of our other tools weren't the same. They didn't realize we had our trucks set up to draft front, rear, side, and side. Their trucks weren't set up to draft, so they brought us in to do some drafting training and things like that. And it really paid off for us. We've been running together for years, but we didn't drill together, and so we're now addressing it in that way. Devin, what are you guys doing up in Oregon?
Same with you. We've had mutual aid and automatic aid agreements for well over 50 years, and so we're very used to responding to calls with each other. Our ambulance agency goes outside of our city and responds to neighboring jurisdictions as a transport ambulance for them. So we work with them on a regular, routine, day-to-day ambulance call basis, and we also fight each other's fires. And so it's been great to have that reliance on each other. We automatically respond to each other's fire calls in the county, and it really gives us the opportunity to work together. Just recently, though, within the last couple of years, we've started saying, hey, since we're on each other's fire incidents, why don't we train together? I mean, we should be training if we're going to be fighting fire together. So we've really started stepping up the ability to get together a couple times a month with outside agencies. We host it around the different departments in the county. So we're taking on a big fifth Wednesday drill here in February. There's a big drill coming up. I think whatever the next fifth Wednesday is, March or April, and that's in a different department. They're responsible for it. So we've divvied them up and said, hey, you take the big ones, and then every third Wednesday we'll get together to do EMS training. We do a lot of countywide officer training. So even though we come from different agencies, we want our officers throughout the county to be speaking the same language, using the same communications protocol, using the same tactics when they get there. That way it's seamless. It's like we're one agency, which is the progression that we're heading for, is to become one agency throughout the whole county. It just takes a long time to get that process taken care of. But if we can get our operations similar and lay down our guidelines the same, get our training in line with each other, then it makes that transition to a countywide department be a lot easier down the road when it comes. So we spend a lot of time doing mutual aid training and automatic aid training, so it's been a real benefit to us and to the other agencies also.
Awesome. Brad, you want to chime in on this?
We do some automatic mutual aid with the departments surrounding us. I think we've gotten more aggressive with automatic mutual aid over the past several years. I think one of the challenges is when we, for example, a department to the south of our city, when we brought them into the fold on an automatic mutual aid agreement, we did some initial training. We did some upfront training about, different valves that they use that we weren't familiar with and things like that. But then the problem has been keeping that up, continuing that training on a regular basis. Once that relationship has been established, and once the AMR paperwork has been signed, and the CAD priorities for apparatus response have changed and things like that, and initial training has been done, just simply keeping that up beyond that. And I'll add one more thing. When it comes to building trust and building rapport with those automatic mutual aid departments, it doesn't have to stop at training. Get together for meals on the holidays and stuff like that, to get together at their stations. One of my buddies that was just a battalion chief up at a department surrounding Columbus, the big city of Columbus, where they do a lot of automatic mutual aid up there. They got together every Friday night for pizzas, at one of the firehouses, and then the next week they would do it at the other firehouse, and so on and so forth. So building that rapport with those automatic mutual aid departments, even beyond just the training aspect of it, certainly that's important, but getting to know them, building that trust, building those relationships ahead of time, even with silly little stuff like getting together for meals and things like that, can definitely be a factor as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Great perspective. Chief Halton?
Yeah, I think the mutual aid stuff is huge, and coming from a volunteer organization, it is difficult because a lot of our training clearly takes place on weekends and evenings, when the career side is less inclined to not want to participate, but available to participate, due to not so much that they don't want to do the training on the weekends, but during the weekends the career organizations have a lot of social commitments to the community, to attend different functions and whatnot, and make a presence and or support those functions with fire protection stuff. Here in Oklahoma, we have a tremendous amount of outdoor activities, and the fire service is always, whether it's a fun run or a community arts deal, or just a lot of stuff that our neighbors get drawn into. But we do have great cooperation with our surrounding other volunteer organizations. And the other organization that I'll throw out there that I didn't hear mentioned, and I'm sure I know Nick does a lot, and I'm sure Brad does too, is our emergency preparedness folks. We've got a tremendously refined and tremendously well established and tremendously active emergency management program in Rogers County. It's run by a firefighter named Scotty Stokes, who also works for the Tulsa Fire Department, and very, very important to us as a volunteer organization, as part of our annual training, to be up to speed on to how to implement and how to integrate into emergency management. We have ice storms, we have tornadoes, we have earthquakes, and we're actually the only state in the union, maybe the only place in the world, that's actually had a Quake-nado. Which is not really a joke. We had an earthquake and a tornado at the same time in the same part of the state. So we've had a Quake-nado. We haven't had a Sharknado yet, but we're standing by. So being able to integrate into an emergency management framework, if you will, is critical to our communities here in Oklahoma. Tornadoes are very indiscriminate as to how they wreak their havoc, and being able to work with the emergency management people seamlessly, knowing your role, knowing how to activate it, knowing what their capabilities are, and then bringing in the public utilities people here for us with our severe weather issues is a huge piece of our training puzzle. So that's where a lot of our opportunities to do mutual aid training come into play when our emergency management people kind of bring it all together.
Thanks, Bobby. I neglected to mention at the beginning of the show that if you're watching and you want to ask the group a question, you can do that by sending us a message on Twitter at #FETalk. And we're running towards the end of the show at this point, but for future reference, you can do that, or even today. But we did get one question from Paula on Twitter, and I wanted to throw that out to the group since she did take the time to ask the question, and that is, what would be your best advice to give a newbie before attending their first call or even their first shift on a department? I think that's an interesting question, and we probably all have our opinion, but your number one piece of advice to that person, what would that be, Nick?
That's a huge question, and I guess if I had to sum it up one thing, I guess it would be know your role. The department or the shift bears the responsibility for deciding what your role is, what function they expect you to perform on the apparatus, what they expect your capabilities to be, and when you show up on day one, your number one job is to know those expectations and be able to meet them. There is no ramp up phase. There is no we'll get you going slowly. I mean, the first time the bell rings for you could be the worst fire you've ever been to or will ever go to in your life, and you need to be able to prepare to fill your role accordingly. Your role also includes a lot of non-response things, expectations on how you treat other members of your crew, how you treat the senior people, how you treat the officers, respect your duties around the firehouse, the old stuff of first one to start doing something and the last one to stop. If I had one thing, I guess that'd be it. Awesome.
Thanks, Nick. Devon, your advice?
I'm not sure I can differ with anything from what Nick said, but I think the best thing is to just be understanding and confident of what you're going to do, and get as much out of your training as possible, so that when you hit that fire ground, you can do things safe, you can perform your task as you're required. And one of the things that sometimes gets overlooked is that if you're not comfortable with what you've been asked to do, make it known. Don't go and do something where you're not confident you can do it. That's going to put yourself at risk. It's going to put your other firefighters at risk. So just be ready for what you do. And if you feel like there's areas that you don't feel good enough, then train on those, practice those. Find someone else in your station or your department that knows how to do those things, and get better at it, so that when that first call, when that first big structure fire comes in, and you're on it, you can do your job as you've been trained and requested to do.
That's great advice, and I've told the story before, I think, on one of these hangouts that several years ago we were doing live fire training, and an engine crew was assigned to do some roof ventilation. I know engines aren't supposed to be doing that, Nick. Don't get upset. But the company officer for the day, who was a firefighter acting up, had the deer in the headlights look, as I would call it. And come to find out, this firefighter had never started the saw. And they weren't a 1-year person or a 2-year person. They'd been on the job 4 or 5 years. And essentially, when we got into it and discussed it, they had been gone through orientation, showed the saw, never shown how to start the saw, just shown where it was. This is a saw. Whoever was teaching them assumed they knew how to start a saw. They'd been through fire school and that sort of thing. And over time, it became embarrassing to go back and ask for somebody to teach them, I don't know how to use the saw, or teach them how to do it. So they just kind of had gone through the paces, and until that day, they never had to. They had never been on a fire ground where that was their assignment. So a slightly embarrassing moment for everyone involved, especially the officers, chiefs, and training people, that we identified that we had that deficit. But the importance of speaking up and telling people when you don't know is really, really important. There's been several line-of-duty deaths where the after-action reports identified that a rookie firefighter saw and could have identified hazard, but didn't speak up because they thought that their role was to keep their mouth shut on things like that. So a great observation there, Devon. Brad, what's your advice moving forward?
I guess for somebody to answer the question, I guess for somebody on their first call, I mean, 7:01 right out of the chute on your first day without really having any background or knowing what you're doing, the easy answer is just obviously hang close to your officer, stay close to your company officer, and do as they direct you to do if you've not been provided with any other background before that. But I think another important perspective of it and something to do in preparation for that first call when it does come is to seek out around the firehouse not only your company officer, but that senior man in the company, that senior, the old kind of the salty dog in the company, the one that oftentimes ends up running the day-to-day operations of the firehouse from an informal perspective, even though they may not be the formal leader. And actually, Bobby just shared an article yesterday on Facebook and Twitter about informal leadership, and it was excellent. And that's something that your question asker in this case might want to read and understand the importance of seeking out that person that's not necessarily the one with the bugle on their collar, but is that senior member that has a lot of wisdom and leadership that they can pass on to that newest member.
Thanks, Brad. Chief Halton, what's your piece of advice moving forward?
Yeah, well, just a real quick, that was an article by Warren Kersley, and I can't remember. You talk about an amazing leader and an amazing instructor and just a absolutely beautiful human being. Get to know him. He's one of the greatest blessings you can bring into your life. But it was he talks about it, and I agree with him. We're all leaders all the time. It's just whether we're leading well or poorly, and it has nothing to do with your rank or your position or anything else. But to Paula, I would tell her to read that article and get to know Warren's work more closely. But from myself, I would say, take the job deadly seriously, because it is. As Tommy Brennan once said, any job that you need to know as much as you can about any job that can kill you, and this job can absolutely kill you. But on the same note, take the job seriously, but yourself not so much. I believe the greatest asset that any firefighter can bring to the table is their humility. And I would look at some of the men on this call, and I apologize, we're just all men at the moment, but the men and women that I know that embody that quality. I mean, Steve Pegram, Devon Wells, my goodness, he talks like, Devon talks like he's a regular guy, but he's anything but. When you get to know him, the depth and passion and intelligence is mind blowing. So I would take my job very seriously, but myself not so much. And our greatest asset is really our humility. And I'll tell you, while this conversation was going on, and this is absolutely true, unsolicited, the great comment that Steve just told that story, and it reminded me when we select our classes for FDIC, and all of the gentlemen on this call participate in that process. When we're selecting classes for FDIC, one of the things we look at are what's trending, and occasionally a class will get furloughed. But the minute Steve mentioned the saw story, I made a note for myself. We're going to bring back the 4-hour roof vent class. It's been furloughed for 2 years now. But if you're a hands-on training person, we're bringing back the roof vent, which is a class that you can send your people to. If you don't have a roof prop, or you're not sure yourself about the various techniques and methodologies, different kinds of cuts that people need to know, whether it's the coffin cut, the triangular cut, the kerf, whatever it is you're not clear about, we're going to bring that program back for 2016, the roof vent class. So there's always an opportunity. I don't care if you're an old man like me who's just old and in the way and just doesn't know when to quit. If you still love this job, and you can learn something every day, so don't feel bad when you ask a question. That was a great point. If you're unsure about how to do something, like Brad said, just say so. Just say, yeah, I do it all the time at Trill. I'm the first one to say I'm not really sure how to do this, especially with extrication. I'm terrible, and I just don't do it enough. And I wish I could do it more, but people frown on it when I start, chiseling on the beep post on their Mercedes. So I stopped doing that in the parking lots. But great advice, but take the job seriously, yourself not so much, and your greatest asset, no matter how long you do this job, is going to be your humility. And if you want to see the real examples, people with real world experience who have every right to be arrogant and braggadocious, look at people like Steve Pegram, look at people like Devon Wells, look at men and Angela Hughes, look at men and women like that, and follow their example.
Thanks, Bobby. I think that really hits it home. We're less than 4 minutes left in the show, and I've got 16 more questions I'd like to ask. So I'm going to give each of you 8 seconds each. Now, actually, real fast, what just popped into my mind when Bobby was talking and we were asking that question is all of us on here are in some type of role where we probably spend more time sitting behind a desk than we do with a nozzle in our hand or an axe in our hand or stuff like that. And so I know in my job, and I've ridden with Nick in South Carolina, what do you guys do to stay competent yourself? I know when you get into the training role and the chief role, you start becoming the teacher all the time and not so much the student. But real fast, Nick, maybe you could fill this in, is how do you stay competent on the skills so that not only you don't get yourself hurt, but you can also continue to be credible in what you're teaching?
I go to every fire I can. I'm right here. If something interesting was to happen, I'd be out. Sorry. But I go to every fire I can, and I function in every role that I am responsible for teaching. I live on the edge of a rural area where if I get there with one of the first engines, I might very well be pulling the attack line. In other areas, I might be the incident commander or any level in the command structure or whatever, but, I actively engage myself in emergency operations scenes every opportunity I have, and I demand the same thing of the rest of my training staff.
Awesome. Anybody else would like to chime in on that? We got about 2 minutes left.
I think Nick said it right. I think you just do as much as you can. You go to as many instances as possible, and those things you're responsible for doing on those scenes, you need to make sure you stay proficient. If you can't stay proficient on them, then you shouldn't do those things on the scene, which is tough. That's tough. I mean, I've got things I would love to be able to do on fire grounds, but I don't do them enough in training, so I don't do them on the fire ground anymore. If I want to start doing that, then I need to start training on them again.
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
when you are in the training environment as an instructor, don't just talk about the skill. Don't talk about the skill as somebody else demonstrates it. Demonstrate it yourself. Keep your own credibility up by keeping your hands on the tools and showing the students that you in fact can do that, and you're not just telling them about it.
Awesome.
And if I could speak for just our senior members and those of us that are handicapped like myself, and either through like myself disease process or whatnot, it's okay to turf the stuff to people like Brad and Devon and Steve who can still physically, do those evolutions and to speak to the things that they can't speak to. I do a lot of stuff with the incident command stuff because obviously you guys, my health is no secret to the American Fire Service. I can't advance hose line. I can't because of my health issues. I can't go up and down stairs. Stairs are a tremendous difficulty for me, so I can't function on the fire ground, but I can still function. So to my fellow disabled former firefighters or retired firefighters or just older firefighters, the body gives out over time, and that's okay. Doesn't mean you still can't contribute immensely to training. There's a ton of things that we can train, and how I stay competent is I ride out when I travel a great deal. I try to, if you have me coming to your town, I always take you up. If you say, hey, would you like to ride out or see our stations? I'm in. I'm always in. And then I like to read, and I read everything I can get my hands on: fire engineering, fire rescue, fire apparatus. I try to keep on top of all the trade journals, and then I love doing stuff like this. I listen to the radio shows. There's so much to the fire service that regardless of your physical condition, you could be confined to a wheelchair. One of my favorite instructors is wheelchair bound in New Jersey, and he's as active a member of his fire department as any other member, and maybe more so, and an absolutely beautiful person. So don't let age or physical disability or disease process count you out, and you can really help. And I'll just say it. You can really help keep others connected who may be on the fringe due to emotional or social or mental disorders or substance issues, you can help keep them connected so that they don't end up being one of our tragic suicide statistics. And it's just the right thing to do. So I stay active by just participating in stuff like this, by reading, by writing, and by observing. And it's going to come to each one of you that are listening today at some point in your life. Something's going to happen that's going to put limitations on you. It's not, you have to accept them because they're just what they are, but it doesn't mean you have to be inhibited by them. There's always something you can add to the fire service.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. We have run out of time for this week's Hump Day Hangout, but I did want to mention that in addition to all the things Bobby just mentioned, you can also go to FDIC April 20th through 25th. Really is the greatest show on earth. I know, a shameless plug, but once you go once, you will go back every year. Whether you have to pay it out of your own personal pocket, like I did the first few years I went, or if you're blessed to have a fire department or somebody else pay for you to go, that's even better. But again, April 20th through 25th, get registered, be there. We will be back with the training Hump Day Hangout next month, March 4th at 1 o'clock again. Our topic is going to be physical fitness training and the importance of training your body to be able to do your job correctly. Aaron Heller should be back with me as my co-host, and we're looking forward to that topic. I want to thank Nick, Devon, Brad, and Chief Halton, as always, for the opportunity to be here today. And until next month, stay safe, everyone.